Hi everybody, I'm Alison Kent at the Home Kitchen, and we are going live today with Emily Lycopolous and Danielle Acken. Let's see if I can bring them in. And invite. There's Danielle. Talk a little bit more about their new book, A Rising Tide, which we introduced when it first came out.
Hi.
I'm just gonna try and find Emily. And she changed her name and now I forgot what it was.
It's that food connection.
There she is. Okay. I'm excited today because I want to hear all the craziest stories that happened on you guys' trip.
You don't have time.
It's saying that Food Connection's not available, so see if she comes in another way.
She might come in as Emily.
Okay, I'll try as Emily. Emily.
She gave me the heads up half an hour ago, so.
Oh, well, I'll just send a request to Emily and see what's happening. I cooked the rhubarb crumble the other day because my rhubarb in my garden is going insane right now.
Yum. I know, it's my favorite time of year. Rhubarb and strawberries.
Oh yeah. Yep, the strawberries come early, and sometimes I guess I have the everbearing ones, and sometimes they just keep coming all summer long, which is nice. Okay. My raspberries seem to have all died though, which is...
Oh no, I know raspberries have a 3-year cycle.
Oh,
so if
interesting.
It's fruit this year, they might go crazy next year.
There she is. I'm excited that we can now get more than 2 people in here. That's crazy.
I know. I think we can do 4 eventually.
I think we can. Well, next time we'll get Aurelian, because I know she works on a lot of stuff with you guys, right?
All of it. I don't do anything without Aurelia Louvet like beside me.
I need one of her in my life. Send request. There we go. I think she'll get this one. I think we got it. I know every time I'm styling something, like I'm not a stylist, but I'll have like an idea, but it would be so helpful to have one of her in my life to like really style for reels. We found you, Emily. I have my book back. Yay. And I made the rhubarb crumble. I think you had a specialer name for it, but
with the rosé. So good.
That honey and the rosé in there. And I just happen to have like 30 bottles of rosé open right now. So.
That's a very good problem to have.
I know. So I'm like, oh, perfect. When I saw that in the recipe notes, I was like excited because I can't possibly drink all the rosé happening during this rosé all May thing happening.
Oh,
so I told Danielle I wanted to hear all the craziest stories, and she said there's nowhere near enough time for that.
There's not.
Why don't you go back, one of you, to do a quick introduction of the book for people that didn't see the last video.
Go ahead, Danielle.
An introduction to the book. Okay. Well, A Rising Tide is the product of 4 years of hard work and planning and 100 days on the road through Atlantic Canada. And we really wanted to showcase the culinary renaissance that's happening there right now, because a lot of the way that people think about food from Atlantic Canada is it's really mired in nostalgia. So it's my grandmother's recipe or the recipes out of the archives. And really, there's just so much exciting stuff happening there. And the stories we found weren't getting told. So we spent over a year planning and then over a year traveling. We did 100 days throughout the year so that we covered all 4 seasons. And just came back with stories and recipes and tales and lots of contributions from some of the top chefs in the area that we were lucky enough to meet and eat from.
And eat so many tasty dinners.
That didn't even occur to me, but yeah, you would have had to go back a couple times for that 100 days to catch all the different. Did you have to go back and forth like 4 times, or did you kind of go on the cusp of summer?
We did 3.
3 times.
The cusp of spring. We went in March, so spring into winter, but we were able to photograph the snow and be there for sort of the beginning of some of the fishing seasons. And then we went again the last 2-3 weeks, was it, Em, of October?
Yeah, it was basically the whole month of October we were there.
Right, to be able to
Yeah.
going into winter, people storing food, how they store for the winter, as well as what Fogo Island calls their berry season and moose hunting season as well.
Yeah, and all the fall colors.
Oh,
Can't forget those.
And all the fall colors. And yeah, you don't want to miss a beat, right? Like it's like, oh, but next month this comes out and you can finally forage for this and you can finally catch this kind of fish. And you're like,
Yeah.
darn, I guess we gotta go back.
I had a whole calendar that had all of the seasons. And so it was like overlapping and seeing what windows we could go to catch the most number at one time. And so the Nova Scotia lobster season actually runs from the November 30th through until April 30th. So it's over winter, where the PEI lobster season runs all summer. It goes from May 1st until September 30th. So I did so much research to figure out what was in season and what was being hunted at what time.
Oh, I bet you want to
During
make
the
the most
trips.
of all your trips out there.
Oh, exactly. It wasn't a close journey.
So this one was organized between Forest, Farm, Field, and Sea, but this one was organized. I was just trying to find the table of contents because I want to say provincially kind of.
It is. Yeah,
Okay.
It's by province.
Okay, I was going to make sure before I said that. But
Yeah. So each province has a chapter, and then within each chapter, we focus on 5 key ingredients that are found in each region. Because each province really has its own identity, we thought that was the best way to organize the book.
So then you go by province, by ingredient, and by season, like the ingredients be organized by season, right?
Not really. They were mostly organized just based on the recipes and kind of where we could fit them in and what made the most sense.
So it's like breakfast through.
Yeah, it's breakfast through dessert.
Yeah.
Yeah, and pickles within each.
Even down to crumpets.
Oh, yes.
So
And strawberry jam.
Strawberry jam. Those are so good. And we did them provincially as well, because while a lot of the ingredients are like, you can get lobster in all 4 provinces, you can get oysters in all 4 provinces, you can get blueberries in all 4. Like a lot of the ingredients are common to the entire terroir of the region, but within that there are micro terroirs for each province. And so we wrote 5 essays per province as well, highlighting the key ingredients that you'll find there, or that they are known for producing, like cranberries in New Brunswick, and moose. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a crazy story. I think we told that one before,
Okay.
but that is a crazy story.
We're going to get some stories in, and I like how there's like a little bit about each, what makes this a special thing. Emily, did you have kind of already in your head kind of some of the recipes you wanted to focus on, or was it basically let's just go explore and whatever kind of strikes you?
It was both. We went and had like a really strong list, or what we thought was a really strong list of recipes kind of going in. And then those, I would say, evolved 3 or 4 times based on our travels. It was like, no, this has to go, or this has to stay, or we have to find room for this one. And then we were also limited by the number we could include because we had so many contributed chef recipes as well. And so there's 25 contributed chef recipes. And so we had to make compromises there because we found some new chefs we wanted to include. And so all of the shifting.
Yeah,
it definitely evolved over the course
pages
of it.
for the stories of the region, so that you're like giving some of the background and what makes that region or that province special. And then the photography.
Yeah, that's the joint labor of love. Emily dragged me out of bed most mornings at 5. She had us she literally had a spreadsheet, a color-coded spreadsheet.
It's true. It's true.
Of like every single hour, like we're meeting this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, and it was just like, we would go. We'd be meeting people from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, like with a meal at the end of the night, and then getting up at 4 in the summer to go and catch golden hour or chase fog or something to be able to get the photographs at their best. So there's
I was about to offer to be your note taker on the next trip, but then you mentioned 4 or 5 in the morning and you lost me.
I don't think you'd want to be my note taker.
You really catch it, right? Like this was worth whatever time of day this was. This really tells a story of what's happening in that area.
And that's a funny story.
That is a funny story.
Okay, tell us the story. I want to hear this one. This is the
You want
page
that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay,
that
wait, where are we? We are in.
Okay,
Was
so
it
we're in New
Brunswick?
Brunswick, except that story starts in Newfoundland.
that story starts in Newfoundland. That you tell this one, Em, because it's fun.
So we jumped off the ferry from Newfoundland. We took the overnight ferry to get from Newfoundland to Nova Scotia, and we were driving through Nova Scotia and realized that in the New Brunswick chapter, we featured a really amazing recipe for quahogs, which are clams, in
By Chef
uh,
Jesse
by
Berg.
Chef Jesse Bergen, and he owns St. John Ale House and a variety of restaurants in St. John. In New Brunswick. And so he wrote us and said, your clams are ready if you want to come and pick them up, but I'm also just caught a deer this morning. So if you want to catch me skinning it, get here quickly. Well, quickly is 6.5 hours away because we're currently in Cape Breton just getting off the ferry. And so we write him. It's now, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning. We've just gotten off the boat. And we say, we'll get there as soon as we can. So book it, end up getting there around 2 in the afternoon. Miss him actually skinning the deer, but get a beautiful picture. I don't know if it made it in there of the pelt that was just kind of like toppled and tossed in the back of his truck. And of course, those antlers Danielle put by his shed. And we caught, I believe,
Just
that
like
wheat
hanging
picture.
out there. Down there.
Yeah. So 3 of those pictures were either taken on the way or actually at Jesse's farm.
Yeah, the shed with the red doors.
Door
Jesse.
is also his.
I was going to say you're booking it, but you're probably also stopping everywhere on the way because it's like, oh, this is beautiful. Oh, this is beautiful. You're just like, pull over, pull over.
There were so many times where
Wheat field bloom, pull over.
or I would just slam on the brakes and kick her out of the car.
Driving so that I could use my eyes as well to be able to see what was around. And let's be clear that that we went from Vancouver to Fogo Island, which was 48 hours trip, and then we did Newfoundland, and then we came back on the ferry overnight, and then drove 6.5 hours to get to Jesse's. And Emily's doing all of this like what, 8.5 months pregnant?
Yeah.
Wait, you drove to the other coast?
No,
we didn't drive, no, but we drove all around. So after we got to Jesse's, which was the 6-hour drive, we turned around and drove back to the Annapolis Valley, which is another 4 hours.
Yep.
So we drove just over 10 hours to pick up 1 jar of clams.
1 jar of clams.
That's totally something I would do. I'm a road tripper. I love it.
Yeah, so fun.
Ooh.
Yeah, the cranberries were
Crowberry.
lovely.
What's a crowberry?
Crowberries?
There's probably a lot of things that we just don't even have at all here, right?
No.
So those are like an Arctic berry. And they actually grow like a very low shrub in amongst the rocks on Fogo Island and all around kind of rural Newfoundland
and
Labrador. Yeah, they're very almost bland, but when you add oil to them, they just come alive. It's so fascinating. When you just taste them on their own, they're quite flat. But as soon as you add an oil and kind of mash them in an oil, they're absolutely delicious.
So you kind of make them savory a little bit. I'm going to be studying this chapter because rabbit is one of the meats that I really want to learn how to master this year.
That picture taken right before Emily skinned it.
Emily skinned it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The chef.
Yeah, it was and it was delicious. The rabbit.
That's my dad.
That's your dad.
That's that rabbit ragu recipe from Lori at Cod Sounds is one of my favorites, I think, in the book. It was delicious.
It's a fussy little critter to cook, but I mean,
so worth it.
So worth it. And I really want to figure out how to do it justice because so far I just end up with it too dry or whatever. So I'm going to be studying that chapter.
Wrap it in bacon and stuff it with fennel.
You had me at bacon.
That's how my aunt does it in Italy. She just wraps it in bacon and stuffs it with fennel and fresh garlic. Tosses it in the oven. So good.
Amazing. I was working on a scallop kind of foam soup this week. And instead of bacon, I did crispy salmon skin. But
cool.
It just needed a bit more salt, but otherwise the flavor would have really been there. I've been learning a lot about foaming, which is a tricky little thing. I just haven't learned it yet, but I'll get it. So a lot of like, just like everything just looks like it has so much flavor. jumping off the page. Did
Yeah.
you guys have to photograph, you guys, meaning Danielle, have to photograph everything on the fly most
Nope.
of these,
So
or you came back and made them and photographed them?
the food was interesting. So it's definitely not me photographing. When we are working with the food, it's all three of us. So Emily's preparing and cooking all of the food. Aurelia's styling all the food. We're all kicking in on prop styling, and then I'm doing technical stuff behind the camera. But that was one of the trickiest things, actually, was a lot of the food was photographed here, and we tried to shoot it in our regular places, like in the Bullet Barn or up in our studio, and it just didn't look right because the light on the west coast is nothing like the light on the east coast. So that was one of the trickier parts for me. How do we make it look this way? And then Emily's parents actually have this new house on Salt Spring with an eastern facing window, so we moved in for a couple weeks. Took over their entire house and made some magic.
I'm sure they weren't too heartbroken about that.
Nope. They
Not
love
too
having
heartbroken.
company, but
This
the
looks
living room filled
amazing.
with props was exciting.
Cranberry bread pudding
It's so good.
with dark chocolate and thyme. I love mixing the savory in because I'm not a huge sweet tooth. It's like the dark chocolate and the thyme. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
We had that for Christmas breakfast this year.
Oh,
It's really fun to have as a breakfast instead of dessert, because it's so, like, it is rich and heavy. So having something that's dense for breakfast is lovely. It's like a bread pudding that you could use for either.
with like a loose clotted cream on it or something.
Exactly.
Ooh. Ooh. What was the most hilarious thing that happened?
Can I tell her about Newfoundland?
Yes,
There's one
please
little
tell her.
tractor.
Oh, that's a good story too.
One little tractor in Newfoundland.
Great. So I'll tell you about Newfoundland, and then Emily can tell you about
The tractor.
the tractor. So we were in Newfoundland, and I absolutely fell in love. Like, as far as I'm concerned, it could be home tomorrow. I love the province. I love the people. I had no idea what to expect going in. I'd never been, and it was phenomenal. So we met so many people, and we actually got invited by Chef Mark McCrow, who's got a cod recipe in the Newfoundland chapter. It's so delicious. And he said, look, we're going to have a beach boil tonight. Some of the top chefs from St. John's are going to be down on the beach, and we've got lobster and mussels and oysters and lots of wine and booze and everything. You should come down. It's going to be a great night. But we couldn't go because we had to leave.
No.
We had a plane already booked. We were flying one of the few interprovincial flights that we were taking, and we tried to rearrange it, but it was way too expensive. We're like, oh, so the whole way to the airport, we're just looking at each other like sad puppies. Like, I can't believe we're leaving. I can't believe this is happening. We get on the plane, and we're still just moping about it. And the plane goes up, and we hit 25,000 feet. And the pilot comes on and says, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the world's worst flyer. A lot of people say that in my country. I'm like, yes to this. And so the pilot comes on and says, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to alarm anybody, but the one of our doors seems to be ajar. So we're going to do an emergency turnaround and head back into St. John's. We'll see if we can get it rectified there. And Emily and I look at each other, and we're like, lobster.
Going to the beach.
We're going to the beach, and it turned out amazingly. I mean, it was so serendipitous. So the plane went back. It was grounded for 24 hours. They gave us a free hotel, a free rental car, and we found ourselves on the beach that night, slipping oysters and lobster and all these amazing people.
And the Capeland was rolling too.
And the Capeland was rolling. It was just awesome.
Is that when you got that shot, or did you already have that shot?
The Capeland? No, that was from we learned very early that when there's cars on the side of the road, we kept asking people, how do we do this? And they're like, if you see a car parked on the side of the road, just stop and go see.
All over.
So that was a different day, but we just went down and found some people.
I knew it was near the front. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was our trick.
Crazy.
I was going to say, before you said you turned back, and then I didn't want to say it, but I was going to say that sounds like one of the most epic evenings a foodie could ever wish for. Like, that is like
really was.
It was. And I just was gutted that we weren't going to do it, and how could we do it? And the fates had something else in mind. They're like, go to the beach.
Yeah,
Oh my
it was a
goodness.
very magical evening. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's like my dream. I've been trying to convince Emily that I need to come to Victoria and we need to do a clam bake on the beach, because
Yes.
I had this food memory when I was, I guess, in high school, like graduating, grade 11 or 12, and a bunch of kids just went out to somewhere. There's a barn on the highway, and we just went like towards east from there, I guess, towards the water, and we're just dumping these traps on the side of this cliff and pulling up buckets of shrimp and just eating them. And somebody had somehow brought a little deep fryer or something on the beach. I don't know how they did that. And we just like pigged out all night, and I've never forgotten that.
So yum.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, we definitely need to make that happen.
We're going to make that happen as soon as we're allowed back on the ferries. Stupid. Stupid. Okay, Emily.
That was our last day.
Lonely tractor.
Our lonely tractor. So the funny part was, it was one of our very last days of travel. It was the very end of October, and Danielle said to me a couple days before, we don't have a good picture of a tractor in a field. And this is absolutely crazy because we traveled for all this time, months and months on the road, and I haven't found a picture of a tractor in a field that I like yet.
I like it.
So,
it has to be a special kind of tractor.
That is a very special kind of tractor.
Like, it's not just any tractor.
And so we're driving through Prince Edward Island, and we don't really have the shots of potatoes that we really wanted, but we have, me and my schedule, we've got to go. And so we're driving through Prince Edward Island to get back to New Brunswick to eventually get back to the West Coast. And for some reason, the GPS actually took us a different way around Charlottetown. And I didn't know where we were going. I just followed it. And it took us down these random back roads that we hadn't been on. And we'd driven almost every road in Prince Edward Island. Landed on these random roads. And of course, we happen upon not just a tractor in a field, but a whole bunch of tractors harvesting potatoes. And it was the very last day of potato harvest.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the lobster potato nachos. So we pull over, of course, because that's what we do. Anytime we see something interesting, we pull over, hop out. And this gentleman is driving this huge truck out of the field. He's like, what do you guys need? Are you okay? Like, oh, yeah, we're just chasing potatoes. What else would we be doing? He's like, oh,
we're
this
just
isn't
stalking
potatoes.
Your tractor.
Basically, yeah, we were. And he's like, oh, get in. I'm like, oh, I'm driving. So I'll follow you. How's that? He's like, sure. And so we hop in the car, follow him about 2 concessions down, and we happen upon the picture that's in the potato chapter, and it's like this mountain of potatoes. There might have been 100 people there, all like scaling the potatoes and washing them and grading them and getting everything ready for harvest, storing them away for winter. So that was the truck that we ended up following, and he's the guy who asked us to hop in. If you turn the page maybe the other direction, you'll see a literal mountain of potatoes. Yeah. So that's where we landed, was that mountain of potatoes. And those are like each easily like 2-pound massive roasters.
Yeah.
Like, they're not small potatoes.
And that pile went back. Where you can see about 50 to 60 feet.
Like thousands
I'm judging
and
by the
thousands
size
of
of
pounds.
the lumber. That's the architect in me. I measure everything by how big the lumber is. Those are massive. What a find. It's those little serendipitous moments, right?
Oh,
There's so many of those.
Yeah.
I mean, you do the planning, but then you just leave room open for the things that might be.
Absolutely.
Emily booked on Prince Edward Island to go from one meeting to the next meeting, and we were out with Johnny. We had 45 minutes scheduled to talk to Johnny Flynn at Colville Bay Oysters, and when we got there, he literally almost picked us up and threw us on the oyster boats, and we were out on the water for about an hour and a half. So by now we're so late, we've got no cell service, we can't reach anybody, and we were out on the boat with his son, and we're like, oh, I feel so bad, we're missing it. When we came back, Johnny was laughing because the chef we were supposed to meet was texting all of the producers around Prince Edward Island going, who's got my girl?
Because he knew you hadn't gone far.
Oh, exactly. And I
reached
out and said, I'm with an oysterman. He's like, I'm texting every single person who I know does oysters to try and find them. Dulce.
else.
Grand Manan is such a fascinating province. Well,
What are
island.
they doing?
So they're rolling dulse, so that's seaweed. And they actually have to hand harvest the seaweed and then they bring it in burlap bags up to these like rocky flats and they haul it from the ocean and it dries on those rocks and it has to be essentially baked in the sun. It's fascinating. So they
Mhm.
like tear it up and lay it in these
The whole
sheets.
system, like it's on rolls there, and like
So as it dries, it bakes together in this mat. So then they have basically it's just a log with a rope on the end and they start it and roll up the seaweed after it's dried. So that's how they flip it. And then they let it roll like dry on the other side and then they can take it into the processor.
I mean, and it looks so rustic and random and like, but that seaweed, like the purple dulse off of Dark Harbor on Grand Manan, is the most coveted in the world. I mean, anywhere, like Japan, everywhere, it all comes
The
from
Netherlands.
it's rolling in.
Yeah.
I was literally just gonna say I would like to have it on popcorn, and there you go.
So good. It's
So good. Because it's nice and salty and it tastes like the ocean. It's so delicious.
Yeah.
And it's also like a multivitamin. It's crazy how healthy it is.
And you don't need a lot of it, right? You're getting
No.
nutrients even just with like putting it on your popcorn.
Just a sprinkle.
Yeah, you can buy it anywhere. I mean, I know our country grocer here on Salt Spring has it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I'm coming to Salt Spring this summer, so I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I'll be
Is that
nagging you
Jane?
for all the foodie recommendations on Salt Spring for sure. It's my birthday.
and my grandma.
Oh, you do have your Grand Manan cup.
Did you bring back, obviously you brought back food for the photo shoots and for finishing off the recipes, but did you just like, is there anything you hoarded? Like every time I'm in France, I bring back suitcases full of truffle salt and stuff like that, fleur de sels, and I just
I'm
hoard
still
it.
using my Newfoundland sea salt.
Yeah.
Are you?
The jar is almost empty and I'm very worried. I'm going to be putting an order in soon.
Yeah, we had to buy 2 extra suitcases and ship boxes of stuff. I mean, both for being able to photograph it so that we had the proper products on hand, but also just for ourselves. I was eating, remember that jar of pickles I got at the Fredericton Farmers Market?
Yes.
Eating those last night.
Oh, so good.
So many great memories. I was gonna say you probably do have a photo in here. I'm not finding it quickly, but I'm guessing your photo of the roasted rhubarb crumble looked way better than mine did, but it was still
We didn't
delicious.
photograph that one.
It was still delicious.
I think that recipe is supposed to be delicious and not beautiful. Just all oozy and tasty.
Oozy and gooey?
Yes, oozy and gooey.
Was that the boat with the?
Yep.
That was the boat.
With the oysters? See, I'm almost starting to feel like I was there.
I know.
You're telling such good stories. I'm like, oh wait, this is the boat.
That's right.
Yeah, that was we went out to the Oyster nursery. So it's pretty cool. John and Emily, if I get my facts wrong, let me know. But the bottom one where you see the little, that one, it's, those are baby oysters and they start them out. They the spat off of the tiles that they've laid down and they put them in these little bags like that with tiny little holes so the water can go through, but the oysters can't. And they let those go for 3 years. Is that correct? Johnny does 3 years?
Yeah.
Or is it 2?
3.
3. I think he grows them there for 3 and then they take them from there once they're 3 years old and they drop them out in the bottom of Colville Bay so that they're out in the waters, wild as it were.
Wild and free. So how long does it take to grow a whole oyster then?
5 years.
5 years?
Per oyster.
I suddenly feel so bad going for
Right?
butter trucks.
And the fascinating
way
part,
more than $1 if they spent 5 years growing for my food.
right? The neat part with the oysters is they actually filter 50 gallons of water a day. So that's one of the reasons why the beaches in Prince Edward Island are so pristine, because the oysters filter so much of the water and they change them, like they move them from bag to bag to bag as they grow naturally, but they put them in the tea bag so that way predators can't get them. And once they get to basically 2 years old or 3 years old, predators can't hurt them. So they're actually like, it's a very, very sustainable, probably the most sustainable aquaculture because of the way that they're raising the oysters. And Yeah,
Actually,
and
the
growing
day
them, it's so
that
cool.
COVID all locked down the beginning of last spring break, I was about to take the boys to go see an oyster farm in California.
Mm.
We were packing the car, and then they
So
said, by the way,
We're not going.
darn, we're gonna go down to I think
Oh,
it's called
tough.
Hog Island down in
Hmm.
just west of Napa.
oh, nice.
Similar thing. And this is a testament to the photography, like right down
Hmm.
to the
It's one of
little
my favorite
dribbles off
pictures.
of the oyster.
That's those hands are Johnny Flynn's. So one of my favorite books. It's not a culinary book. It's a culinary writing book, and you'd love it, Alison. It's called Apples to Oysters. And it goes through the Canadian food market, basically province by province, finding producers that do things really sustainably and really well,
Mm-hmm.
sort of contrasting it against those that don't. And one of the funniest stories in there is about Johnny Flynn. So I was very pleased when we were down there, and it ended up being him that we were meeting. He's great.
You must have met so many characters. Like chefs are already characters, like that Emily. But like you must have met some really funny people.
We really did. Well, and one of the things I'll never forget, we were on
Lobster.
a cattle farm, a beef cattle farm, in Prince Edward Island. And of course, we walk down the driveway with Mike and Evelyn at Dexter Cattle, and we see a foal, and I see a tractor. And Danielle and I literally part ways, and she goes straight to the horse, and I go straight to the tractor. And they both look at each other like, "Who are these people?" And I'm, yeah, way too in love with my farm
They're
equipment.
like, yeah, you just have a different mind. I was doing that with at your photography,
Oh, that's one of my favorite.
Hmm.
because you could turn any corner at Bullet Lake Farm and just be like, oh, and I kept losing the group constantly because I was like, oh, oh,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah,
With my little iPhone because I don't know how to use a real camera like Danielle.
it's that picture was so beautiful, and it's actually a black and white. Oh, the mushrooms, that's a hysterical story. Yeah, everywhere we turned, I jumped out of the car. I don't even know if Emily had time to stop it when I might have jumped out of the rolling car. We're up the Bona Vista Peninsula, which is one of my favorite places, and that old boat was sitting on on these timbers, and it was just like, this is incredibly beautiful.
Isn't that the shot too, where the sun was like shining through the clouds behind?
Yeah, it's not there, but
Same evening, but yeah.
Mm. Well, yeah, you must have hundreds of shots that aren't even in the book.
13,000, wasn't it?
And Emily, do you already do like a lot with foraging? You would know which mushrooms to pick and all that kind of stuff, or
I do not know which
you do not?
mushrooms to
Yeah,
pick.
I don't.
One of the things that Sean Dawson, who is a mushroom forager we went with, was amazing. And he was basically helped host a symposium at Memorial University with some mycologists. And they basically say, every mushroom that you can find, bring it and we'll identify it. And they had over 1,200 mushrooms, and 8 were edible. So he's like, that's how rare it is to
Only 8
actually
were
find
edible?
8 were edible of the 1,200 mushrooms that people arrived with. He's
Okay,
like,
maybe I won't forage for mushrooms then.
he's like, always go with a buddy, always go with somebody to be able to know
and
what you're eating.
and the best thing is that now, I mean, I know that Wild Northern Way is in Vancouver, and there are professional foragers. Like, that's what Sean Dawson does. In Newfoundland, it is easier to forage than it is to farm, and
Yeah.
so he supplies a lot of the chefs, the top restaurants, with these products. Spruce tips and wild berries and mushrooms and all kinds of incredible things. So if you're not a forager, or if you don't have that kind of knowledge, there are now professional foragers at farmers markets across the country. You can go and you can get all of these things.
Which, to somebody who cooks all the time, like Emily, like you're just always kind of interested in a new ingredient too, that you haven't been seeing
Absolutely.
it Safeway for the last 40 years. And you want something that's a little bit different and something new to explore flavors with, and which was probably half of this trip too. Did you find
Absolutely.
a lot of new surprising flavors? And
yeah, bake apples is one of them. They're amazing. And same with like the crowberries we talked about earlier, even haskap. is a relatively new berry that is like a leathery, savory blueberry. It's so good. But there's just such a great variety of flavors on the East Coast. It's really a sustainable ecosystem, and its terroir is very unique in and within the region. So discovering all of kind of what's naturally growing there and just happens to be so fun.
So jealous. So jealous. All these like, whoops,
Go.
the things you must have seen. Oh, and
We
I
fought
love
to get
that,
that picture in the
like, it's not, not to say this about other cookbooks, but it's not a lot of repetitive photography. Like every single photo is telling a completely different story. So it's not just here's a pie, here's a plate, here's another plate, here's another plate, here's another plate.
Right.
It's actually like the entire book is telling photography and a written story, both.
And I think if we had gotten all the images in that we wanted to, the book would have been twice the size.
Like, I don't have it behind me anymore. What is the other one that has over 100 recipes? The
cedar and salt.
The olive oil and vinegar one or something has like 100 and some odd recipes in it.
180. I think it's crazy. Way too many to count. And that doesn't include variations.
You had me at rabbit ravioli. Oh my goodness.
That's my other favorite recipe in there. That butternut cream is, I mean, Emily is so good at her recipe development, within these books, and that's what she does for our commercial clients too. And she's just so talented at it. It's crazy. And I would never think to make like butternut cream sauce, but it's so good.
But it's so good. Well, we are going to, starting right after this live, we are going to give one of these away. Not this one, it's mine, but although this one's not signed still. I still got to bring it over to be signed.
Bring it over.
Okay. Well, I'm visiting both of you this summer anyway, so
Awesome.
Assuming Danielle tells me where she lives.
I'm at the yellow side Bullock Lake Farm. You can.
Easy. Yes, we're excited to be giving one of these away. So we're going to do a giveaway hosted on my Instagram, or both the Eat Creative or whoever's Instagram. I can find all the people and I can do a pretty good giveaway. So there you go. Awesome. And so we got this starting today until Friday. And people can find you guys through eatcreative.co on Instagram.
Yep, for individuals, yeah.
And then you have your individual ones as well?
Exactly.
Okay, who are you, Emily?
That Food Connection.
That Food Connection. Danielle.
DL Acken Photos.
DL Acken Photos, which I love to follow. And you just won, are you shortlisted for an award recently?
I did, one of the pink ladies.
So exciting.
A stunning photo too. I'm obsessed with it.
It was a fun shoot. And that's my my eldest in the picture. So
in the picture.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing stories with me. We're going to get this giveaway going up in the next hour. And
amazing.
I mean, I'm happy to talk stories with you guys any old time.
Awesome.
Fun.
Thank you.
Rosé.
Yes. Enjoy all the rosé. Thank you.
The ones I don't cook with, yes. Thank you so much. We'll catch you guys soon.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.